Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. Today's game is Castlevania for the Nintendo 64, which has seen its fair share of criticisms. Some good, some bad, but I want to take a look back and see if it truly does deserve the backlash that it has gotten over the years. So get those axes ready and hold on to those potions because it's time to head back to 1999. Back in the 90s, Konami was on fire with so many great games. A lot of great games on the SNES like Batman Returns, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, games on the PS1 such as Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but they started going 3D with a lot of their games, and it works for Metal Gear Solid and for Silent Hill, but for games like Castlevania and Contra, it really didn't work too well going 3D, at least for those first incarnations. Contra is still kind of hit or miss with the 3D stuff, and that's a game that should probably stay 2D, but the later 3D Castlevania games really weren't that bad. Castlevania 64, I won't get into too many details, but it was kind of a mess from the start when they began development on the game. It is an okay game. I do enjoy it for what it was, but yes, there are some flaws in the game, and I do want to talk about the pros and cons. So with that being said, let's jump into some gameplay and talk about the pros first. Okay, let's talk about the good first. So the game does have the same layout and setup as the original Castlevania games on the NES and the SNES, so you are following a linear path from point A to point B. Only because it's in 3D, you really don't know where you're supposed to go because the old games were side-scrolling and you knew going from the left to the right basically completed the level. This one, you have to do a lot of other unnecessary stuff in order to get through the level, like open a bunch of gates. Now, I guess that could count as a con, but really it's not that bad because you get to explore the level as a whole and fight the enemies that are within the levels. Now, the enemies do return. They're the same enemies as before. The werewolves, the skeletons, Medusa heads, Frankenstein's monster. Everybody from the original game, enemy-wise, does make a return to this game. And I believe you do fight the Minotaur as well, which is a really cool boss fight. I really enjoyed that boss fight as well. You actually get to fight some vampires as well in this game, in the boss fights, and that was another good fight that I really enjoyed in this game because it was very fast-paced and it was very easy to defeat them. It wasn't too difficult. Now, when it comes to the enemies, one thing I did like was that they added the ability to lock onto enemies, and you can hit them from afar if you wanted to, because the camera is very finicky and janky, and I'm going to talk about that in the cons as soon as I get there. But locking on really does help, and it basically helps you not get confused as to where you're going. Now, yes, the camera will turn around and pan wherever you don't want it to. I like that you can lock on and hit enemies in whatever direction you're facing. Now, they could be far away and you want to use your sub-weapons on them, you can still lock on and hit them from afar, and it's no problem. Now, speaking of the sub-weapons, every weapon does make a return in this game. The holy water, the cross, the axe, all your favorites make a return. I still don't use the holy water because I still think it's really stupid, but I do find myself using the axe and the cross a lot. And especially what's cool about this cross in this game is that when you throw it, it will hit one enemy, and then it'll hit another enemy, and then another enemy. So say you get 3 or 4 enemies in front of you, it will hit all 4 of them before coming back to you. So almost like a batarang, if you will. The axe is very good for fighting enemies as well. If you're far away from them, you can just toss it and it hits the closest enemy to you. As long as you're locked in, I believe if you're not locked onto an enemy, it might miss them completely. So keep that in mind. For the main characters, you do get to play as 2 characters, Reinhardt and Carrie. I always choose to play as Reinhardt just because he was the first character I played as. He's the one that's on the box art and the cover art and everything. So I like playing as him. You also get weapon upgrades for both characters. Carrie, her weapon upgrade basically has a better ranged attack for her homing attacks. Reinhardt is the typical whip upgrade, so you get 3 upgrades, and then you get the most powerful whip. The whip basically extends to throw even further away, which really does help when you're fighting enemies from far away as well. Especially having that camera locked onto an enemy, you can hit them in whatever direction you're facing. Keep in mind, once you die, you actually lose the upgrades per usual for the old Castlevania games. And I want to say when you save your game and reload, you still lose them as well. So keep that in mind that if you get to a save point and you want to reload it, you might not have that weapon upgrade. I know that happened to me one time I was playing it and I didn't understand why because I had everything upgraded in there and I didn't die, so why'd they take it away from me? Those are just some of the pros. Now let's get into the cons and see what people disliked about this game because there is a lot of stuff that people did not like about this game, the camera being one of them, and that's probably going to be the first thing that I bring up is the camera angle. Okay, and now for the bad. I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way. The camera is your worst enemy in this game. I had so much trouble with this camera. Fighting the Medusa heads combined with the camera is even worse, trying to get through some of these levels. And just there's certain spots where you're going straight and then the camera will pan left or right, and you end up falling into a pit of water, or falling into a pit of nothing, or just falling off a ledge trying to get through the level. It's really annoying and I don't like it. A lot of fans did not like the camera in this game. Now, it can be managed properly if you can time it right and line it up correctly when you're trying to jump across to a platform or something. That way you don't miss. Now, there's times where you'll think, okay, I'm lined up properly, I've got it. You jump and you fall straight into the water and die. It's happened to me many times. It's not fun. I hate it. Yes, the camera is one of the biggest culprits of this game, one of your biggest enemies in this game. They kind of fixed it in Legacy of Darkness, so I'm definitely going to bring that one up too when I cover that game in the future. But they did fix the camera a little bit in that game. It still has some issues, but we'll talk about that when we get to that video. Another spot that I did not like, and a lot of fans do complain about this too, is the one level where you have to carry a nitro bomb from one point of the castle to another one to blow up a wall. You cannot jump, you cannot fight, you cannot do anything. It's basically like what happened with Resident Evil Remake, where you had to carry the nitro through the laboratory. And I feel like Capcom was like, hey, that's cool, that's a great idea, let's add that into our game. Even though it's very annoying in Castlevania, it's not as bad in Resident Evil, but it's still very annoying. And the thing is that you're going through there, and I believe there's still enemies trying to kill you, so you want to be careful with that. And with this game, you can't run either, otherwise you explode. So you have to walk, and it is a long path from where you get the nitro bomb to where you have to drop it off. It is very long, very annoying trying to get from point A to point B with that one without dying, and you will likely die a lot when you're fighting that one spot trying to get there. Now, one last con that I want to bring up that I didn't like about the game is the difficulty. No, the game's not hard at all, but if you play on easy, you get to a certain point and the game will stop and say, okay, in order to see the full game, you need to play this game on normal difficulty. So they basically pulled a Ghosts and Goblins on you and made you have to play the game again. Only you didn't defeat the whole game and then have to play it again in another castle. It's just one of those things where they want you to play normal difficulty. They want you to get the true ending by playing the normal difficulty. And a lot of games back in the 90s did that. It was just not cool. Don't do that. Let us just play the game how we want. If we want to play on easy mode, let us play on easy mode. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with people playing a game on easy mode, especially if you're going to play it on like a stream or something. There is nothing wrong with playing the game on easy mode. Some people just want to have fun with the game. They just want to chill, have fun, play the story mode, not have to worry about anything challenging. A lot of games these days do that, where they add like, I just want to play the story, and they make the difficulty as easy as possible for you, just so you can enjoy only the story. Those are some of the cons. I know I didn't mention everything, and if there's anything that I missed, please let me know in the comments below. I'd like to know what some of your dislikes are of this game and what some of your positives are of this game. With that being said, we're coming up to the end of the video here, and I want to give my final thoughts on this game as a whole. Okay, so we said some good and some bad things about Castlevania 64. In all honesty, because this was my first Castlevania game I ever played, I still enjoy it for what it is. I still enjoy the game. Yes, the camera angle is the absolute worst. The nitro area is the absolute worst, but I still enjoy playing this game. It was my first Castlevania game, as I mentioned in my Symphony of the Night video, so I have a better appreciation for it. And if you're a newcomer to the series and you want to try every Castlevania game, give this one a try. Give Legacy of Darkness a try. Yes, they're not the best, as I mentioned before. There are better Castlevania games out there, but if you want to see what all the hype was about, what all the hubbub was about, what everybody disliked about this game, definitely give it a try. Now, if you are a fan of the original Castlevania games, the 2D games, you're likely not going to like it. I know a lot of fans of the series did not like it because it went 3D and they thought it was breaking the series and ruining the series, and then they eventually did go back to 2D Castlevania games with the Game Boy Advance titles, and all the handheld titles basically became the 2D Castlevania games, because they did have some 3D games on PS2 in Lament of Innocence and Curse of Darkness, and then later on they came out with the Lords of Shadow series, which was also a 3D Castlevania, but that one felt a little more like God of War. But when it comes to Castlevania 64, the game is still only available on N64. It is not available on any other console right now. They have not released any collections of any kind, probably because of all the backlash this game has gotten over the years. They have not released anything. Now, if they do somehow decide, hey, we're going to release it on Nintendo Switch Online as an N64 game, I will definitely jump on that one and buy a membership for that one just to play that game again on a modern console. Yes, I still have my original copy, but it's kind of a hassle hooking up the N64. Now, as for the controls, I do want to say, if you manage to pick up a Retro Fighters controller, get it, because it will make this game a lot easier to control, especially with the camera. And I feel like a big part of the backlash of this was the original N64 controller and how it was mapped and everything. I had a lot of trouble with that controller playing this game, and when I used the modern style controller, the Retro Fighters, it was much easier to move around in each level and basically not have to fight the camera as much. I enjoyed it a lot. I definitely say pick one up if you can get it to play this game a lot easier. Now, as we come to the end of the video, guys, I do want to ask you, what is your favorite Castlevania game? Are you a fan of Castlevania 64 or Legacy of Darkness? If you are, please let me know down in the comments below what your favorite game is and what your favorite moment is from these two N64 games, if you are a fan of them. Or what your absolute worst part of this game that you didn't like about it was. Please let me know down in the comments below. I would like to thank you again for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I always enjoy making these videos because it gives me a chance to revisit the past and introduce these older games to a newer audience who might be interested in trying them out for themselves. But it also gives me a chance to bring back the memories to those older fans who used to play these games back in the 90s and early 2000s, such as myself. But as always, guys, be sure to hit that thumbs up and ring that bell to be notified of when videos go live. Share with your friends and family, and I'll see you next time.